Thank you. I also today represent the Ohio Jewish Communities, which is the body that represents all of the Jewish communities of the state of Ohio. I'm not sure I can add much sacred text to what's already been spoken. Perhaps the greater message is the simple one that you see so many religious leaders from different faiths standing shoulder to shoulder today supporting the governor's proposal. But I will just add that, as you know, the Jewish tradition, especially the prophetic tradition, teaches us that we're obligated to protect those that are at the margins of society. My own movement, the Reform movement of Judaism, has long advocated for universal health care. In our Jewish tradition, we understand that providing health care is not just an obligation for an individual doctor, but for a society as well. So one of the greatest rabbis and philosophers, who was also a physician, was Moses Maimonides. Some say he was the greatest Moses since Moses. Amen. I've said that about himself too. But he's a medieval philosopher. He wrote in a text called the Mishneh Torah that among the 10 most important communal services that had to be offered by a city to its residents is health care. So, following in his footsteps, there's a long history of self-governing Jewish communities that set up societies to ensure that all citizens had access to health care. Doctors were required to reduce rates for the poor, to provide free health care if the patient couldn't pay for it him or herself. Or, in addition to that, there were always communal subsidies, which would really be a precursor to what we're talking about here today. Communal subsidies that were always established to make sure that health care could be provided to everyone in the community. One other text from a later text, but certainly standing on Maimonides' shoulders. In the Shulchan Aruch, it's written, if a physician withholds his services, it is considered as shedding blood. We as a society are the hands of God, and we're obligated to bring healing to all who are in need. So we simply have to ask ourselves, can our health care system honor and respect the idea that all people are indeed created? In Hebrew we say B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God, and are not all entitled to equal treatment and access to quality, affordable health care. Thank you. Amen.
Our next speaker is Reverend Richard Burnett, who is the rector at Trinity Episcopal Church right downtown.
Thank you. I am the rector of Trinity Episcopal Church right across the street at 3rd and Broad, and I trust that you all will mark your calendars for Wednesday, March 20th to meet at Trinity and then come here for Advocacy Day. It's our privilege to welcome again the Ohio Council of Churches advocacy, particularly in this urgent season. The Episcopal Church is named for an office. Episcopal means bishop. And our bishop, who is in residence in Cincinnati and has been in conversation and contact with me in these days and hours before this meeting, has instructed me to speak for him and for the Diocese of Southern Ohio, and by extension, for all those who have signed a letter urging the passage of the Medicaid expansion in Ohio in support of the plan that Governor Kasich has presented, and in thanksgiving for his leadership. The Episcopal Church has over 100 dioceses. Southern Ohio and Ohio are 2 of those 100. That is all the Episcopalians in the state. But we have 7 bishops, both active and retired, living in this state, and all 7 have signed on to that letter. Yes. When a person goes to seminary, you learn a couple of things that are absolutely urgent. And one of them is that when a bishop signs or calls out or asks you to do something in the Episcopal Church, you do it. We are a biblical church. We are a church that no doubt stands in tradition. But we also have a third leg on that stool, and that third leg is called reason. And it would be unreasonable for any Episcopalian not to be in support of this measure after 7 bishops. But I have a higher authority. And that's my mother. All right. 2 years ago, my mother died at the age of 88. After spending 3 years in a very fine nursing facility here in this city. That nursing facility was paid for and supported by Medicaid. My mother, I believe, calls me to speak today. And if you will, she calls you. And it would be unreasonable not to support my mother.